Today we need to discuss the Enlightenment, how the 18th century Enlightenment was a culmination of hundreds, even thousands of people all working independently but partially communicating with one another, coming up with ideas left and right involving trying to understand some basic concepts of who humans are, how people are, most importantly, how societies work, be it politics, be it human nature, be it just are we good or evil. Not scientific ideas, but what today we would call social science. Right? These are the fathers of that. What I have in front of you is an outline of the best way that I can describe it. Essentially three things: a clock, an earthquake, a book, and a phrase, which together at least help us understand what was going on, what was being done by these people who called themselves philosophers, not philosophers, because they believed that they weren't just spouting ideas, they were trying to come up with true answers. So let's get into it. First and foremost, we start with a clock. The clock was an invention of the scientific revolution. It was a new concept, the concept that you have a machine that can keep time. Well, I don't know how many of you are familiar with grandfather clocks, but you see the two little dials in the middle on each side of the hands. One is to set the clock. The other is you put a key in there and you crank up these weights which hang on a chain. Some you will see will have a pendulum, but the old ones had these weights on a chain, and the idea is you crank them up, and over a series of days and sometimes weeks on the really big clocks, those chains slowly pull down and turn the clock. It's what powers the clock. Well, these philosophers, these Enlightenment figures, for them, this clock was the best way of explaining how they saw the world around them and God. They were not kind of honestly, anti-God, anti-Christianity, anti-anything. They were just had this idea that the world was created by a non-interventionist God. That God essentially made the earth and made all the stuff and figured it all out, and then, like the clock, he cranked it up and walked away and let it happen. Now that means there's no miracles. That means God isn't taking an active part in everyday lives, and that's important, because if you're trying to find the law as to how people act, you can't have a God who keeps mixing in there. You need a non-interventionist God if you're going to find the true answers. Okay, so that's deism. But now let's look at these guys, how they actually kind of went about this. And some people like to call this the early, middle, and late Enlightenment. I think it's just three ways of explaining the different aspects going on in the Enlightenment. And we start with Voltaire, 1713 to 1784. His name is Francois-Marie Arouet. If you take an anagram of his last name, if you change his last name into Latin and then take an anagram of that, you get Voltaire. Yeah, it tells you a little something about him. But in 1755, he was witness, not personal witness, but saw the Great Lisbon earthquake. It was a magnitude of 9 on the Richter scale. Those of you who remember the 2010 Haitian earthquake, that was a 7. This was a 9. Somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 people died. We couldn't account for 40,000 one way or the other. We still have no idea. It was that destructive. And this shook all of Europe. It made people question. It's like, why? Why did this happen? How could such tragedy happen? And the church's answer to this was very simple. These people were sinners. And this was God's way of punishing them. Well, Voltaire had been to Lisbon, Portugal, of course, and so had many of these others. And they said, you know what? That doesn't make sense. We've met these people. We've been to this place. This is not a den of sin. They started logically thinking about it and questioning. And Voltaire started arguing. He got into a publication war with various clergy in the church, arguing that there has to be another answer. It's not that he's coming up with that answer. It's that he's trying to figure out, trying to question, not just accept what the church tells him, not accept that this is an act of God, but find an answer. Why might this be happening? Whether it's a scientific answer or a society answer, we need to question, we need to find that idea that you must question everything. And that's at the heart of it. But you can't just question everything. You have to go beyond that. And that brings us to our second major person. His name is Denis Diderot. Lived from 1713 to 1776. He is a hack writer. He actually got jailed for writing pornography. Yeah, gotta make a living, right? And while he was in jail, he was approached by a group of wealthy individuals who asked him to compile all the world's knowledge. And from 1751 to 1780, he did just that. He wrote the Encyclopédie, or he compiled or edited the Encyclopédie, au dictionnaire raison de sciences des arts et de maîtres pour une société de gens de lettres. What he wrote here is a book that today we would call encyclopedia, certainly the forerunner of a Wikipedia thing, where he'd find experts all over who could actually explain things like, what is an earthquake? How do you shoe a horse? What is the definition of pi? 3.14, blah, 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 right? What is how does a printing press work? So it's some very practical stuff, it's some very philosophical stuff, but you find all of these answers, you put them in this book, this 28-volume book that takes 29 years to compile, taking knowledge from everybody, or all the people who have that knowledge. And if you put it all together, suddenly you have a totality of knowledge. Not a totality of knowledge that one or two people has, but that theoretically is open and accessible to everyone. Now, very few people could afford the encyclopedia, but it's a step. It's come to fruition now with the World Wide Web, right? The idea that if you put all the knowledge out there, we will all have more knowledge, and knowledge is power, and we will all become more educated. If we're all more educated, we all have more information, we can all make better decisions. Knowledge will improve society. Questioning. Knowledge. Last stage. Oops, sorry. Please note, though, that the encyclopedia was written in the vernacular. It was written in French. Whereas the scientific revolution, such as Philosophy Naturae Principia Mathematica by Newton, was in Latin. I should take note of that. Maybe somebody can explain that to me. Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804. 1784, he wrote What is the Enlightenment? He was at the end of the period, and he wrote an explanation about what this movement was all about. That is epic, and if you get a chance, read it. Although it's a little dense, it's worth it. And he based it around one phrase, and that phrase is dare to know. Not dare to question, as Voltaire did, not dare to compile, but dare to know, dare to find the answers, jump out, do it, search, because any answer, the ultimate answer, can be found if you first question everything, second get the knowledge, but this is the last step. You reason through. If you keep asking questions and using reason as the scientific method to find the answers, eventually all of those questions and all of that reasoning through will get you to the true answer of what is the nature of man, how does the economy work, why do people do the things they do. These guys believed that just as the scientific revolution observers did, that they could find the true answers to society. If you question, gain the knowledge, and then reason your way through, you will find the absolute truth. Unless you're a woman, because according to Kant, women are made of passion and can't reason. Not me, that's Kant. The question is, what happens when people who can't understand these high-minded ideas as philosophies and ideas take this concept of reason your own and find your own answers, and they start applying it to their daily lives. That's why we're going to have to take a look at the French Revolution. But that's another day.